Hello, today I am talking about the apostrophe, and you'll see on the board that I've drawn out an apostrophe. I've spelt it out for you. Want to know how to spell it? But what you see here on the both sides is contractions and possessive nouns. And the reason that I have that is that there are only two instances in which you will use an apostrophe: contractions, possessive noun adjectives. And that is it. We do not just put random apostrophes. It does not make things plural, okay? Just like adding an S doesn't make it possessive, okay? So I do really want to clarify some things, go through some rules, because honestly, there's some mystery around, especially when we're making nouns possessive and when. So I'm just going to use this time to clarify, okay? And how does it work in academic writing? Everything that I do, especially grammar on this level, is always going to point back to how does it present itself in our writing? What do we use? What do we not use? Okay. All right. So jumping on in, contractions. Contractions we use all the time in our everyday conversations. It is more of a relaxed conversation. Mainly, we talk fast, we're pushing stuff together, and that's basically what a contraction is. Cannot, can't, are not, aren't. A couple that I want you just to take from your vocabulary altogether, written and verbal: will not, won't, that's awful. Are not, some people will say, instead of aren't, they'll say ain't. Please do not use won't or ain't in any circles, written or verbal. It really does take down the credibility of what you're trying to say, and definitely what you're trying to write. Now, I'm getting ready to make a differentiation. In academic writing, we never use contractions unless it is in a direct quote. I'm going to repeat that. In academic writing, you do not use contractions at all because it's more of a relaxed conversation. Academic writing is more formal in nature. Professional writing is formal in nature. Contraction usage is not formal writing, so you never use it. However, like most things with the English language, there is one exception. If it is in a direct quote, because you have to honor someone's words. If they're quoting something, you need to honor exactly what they said. So you don't change that. So if it is in a direct quote where someone is using a contraction, that is the only time it's acceptable in that academic writing. Make sure that you're citing it and giving props to who said it. If not, it's considered plagiarism. And if somebody's quoting, everybody wants to know, well, where did I hear that? Blah, blah, blah. So contraction usage is typically used more in creative writing, or more acceptable, mainly because in creative writing, and especially if there's dialogue, that's how we speak in our everyday language. That's how we speak to one another. Therefore, you're going to have contractions, and in that particular realm, it's acceptable, and you're cool with that. Academic writing, no, not unless it is in a direct quote. Other than that, you do not use it at all. Okay, just to kind of give you a couple examples, like would not is wouldn't. Does it look familiar now? A lot of people, it's like they know it, but they don't know what things are called. So these are contractions. Could not. Couldn't. Shall not. Well, no. That's like kind of like change. You can look these up online. I mean, there's just tons of things. And also, if something in the back of your head at any time when you're writing, and you're just like, I don't know, am I right or not? Go look it up. Take 2 seconds and look it up. It is better for you to go do that than make an assumption and you be wrong. Okay. So there's tons of those things. Again, academically speaking, you're not going to do that. Now, when you're editing, please go back and make sure that you have cleaned that up. Sometimes when we're typing and we're writing, we're just trying to get all of our ideas out, and that's okay. But you have to clean it up, and that has to be on that list of make sure I did not do that. And how am I using contractions? If it's outside of a direct quote, you can't have it. Spell it out. And that, I guess that's the other piece of it. It's not just knowing what to, the contraction and how to put one together. It's also, how do I unpack the contraction into the two words? Okay, so that's basically all it is about contractions. And again, if you're wanting a list, I'm sure that there is one online somewhere, just to say list of contractions or how to do them. But like I said, and what we're doing, you're not going to be using contractions at all. Okay. All right. This is the big one, and that's possessive nouns. And this is also the mystery. I've even had teachers come to me, adults come to me, hey, can you look at this? Is this right? And you're like, well, why wouldn't you know that? Because some of them, honestly, you look at it and you're like, this cannot be right. Well, sometimes it is. Okay. And I will give you an example of that in just a second. All right. So the main thing with possessive nouns and those things that we learned in grammar school, the first one is knowing the difference between singular and plural and recognizing, what are you trying to say? Are you talking about one thing, or are you talking about more than one thing? One thing singular, more than one thing plural. Just make sure, okay? And that is the first rule. That's the first step. What are you trying to say? What is showing ownership over something else? And once you determine, okay, I'm only talking about one thing rather than more, then that's how we actually start the process of showing possession. Okay? So when we have singular words and we're doing singular possession, there is only one rule. One rule. To make a singular noun possessive, you add an I talked about that in another video, an apostrophe, because it starts with A, that's why we use an. We use an apostrophe S. And that's it. Regardless, this is the kicker. Regardless if the word in its singular form ends in S. Now, for those of you who are in my 100 class, and actually for this week in 101, I've actually given you the text that I have created, and I have walked through this step by step, by the way. So if you don't get this, you do have your textbook to have as a resource on that. Okay, so I want to give a couple different examples on this, okay? So if I'm going to say like a cat's paw, okay? And then one, I wouldn't say cat paw. Audibly, that doesn't even sound right. There's a reason with adding that S because of that flow of language. And so we're going to add an S. But if I just add an S, that just makes it plural, okay? Doesn't make it possessive. In order for me to make, and I'm talking about one cat's paw, I have to do an apostrophe S. Again, there are only two reasons that you use apostrophes, and contractions is one, and possession is the other one. And that is it. Without an apostrophe, all you're doing is you're making some stuff plural. And when we get to plural, it doesn't even work on all words to make them plural because there's different rules with that, okay? So cat's paw. Now this is one of the kicker ones where you're going, no way is that correct. But unfortunately, based on the rule, for singular possessive, it is. If I was to say the dress's buttons, and I'm talking about one dress, or I can say the zipper. Let me do that because buttons is plural. So the dress's zipper, it ends in S. Now this is the one that everybody gets confused because they automatically think, well, it ends in an S, so all I do is add an apostrophe. That is wrong. For singular possessive, I still have to add an apostrophe S. And it does look wonky, doesn't it? So this is what I would tell you. Remember that at the end of the day, whatever you're writing is your creation, okay? And you have to put your name stamp on it. There's always more than one way to word something. And we've kind of talked about this in other classes. Things can be technically right, but it doesn't mean that it either sounds right, looks right, or it may not be really, there's just something off about it. And we never want to do something that could have the reader look again as like they're seeing an error or something like that. So dress is zipper, that's actually correct. But probably what I would do, because I know that that will freak people out, or not freak them out, but you know, they're looking at it like the person didn't know what they're talking about, even though yes, I do on this particular point. I would probably rephrase it. There's always more than one way to phrase something. So if I said this dress's zipper came out at the dinner party or during the dinner party, or during the dinner party last night, the zipper in my dress broke. Honestly, the second sentence sounds better. I'm avoiding the SS apostrophe S situation. Okay. So again, but if you're seeing that, that's okay. Now, this is the other thing. My last name is Waters. This always, people just love this. Okay. As a teacher, I would usually have meetings in my classroom for NHS and other things like that. So I'd have to put a reminder signs up. NHS meeting will be held in Mrs. Waters' classroom, during lunch. Guess what? I end in S. There is only one of me. And so, yes, on my signs, I would have Waters apostrophe S. There's really no other way to rephrase that. So it is what it is, and that is correct, okay? So again, for singular possessive, you just add the apostrophe S, period, okay? All right, now this is where it gets way more interesting. And honestly, for some of these, you may have to go online to make sure or to clarify certain things, okay? So our second rule, again, these rules are written in that textbook that I have given you guys. Okay, so for possessive nouns. With possessive nouns, there's actually two different things that happen. You could have written it singular, but you're like, oh, I really need to make this plural. So the first thing with plural possessive nouns is you have to, one, make sure that the noun, and this is for plural, by the way, I'm sorry. Make sure that the noun is in its plural state. And that is the first thing. I can say man, but that's not plural. It's men. Okay? I can say knife, but my plural form is knives. Are you seeing something going on here? I can say dress, but my plural form is dresses. Okay? I can say syllabus, but it's syllabi for plural. A little fun note, octopus. People like to say octopus is octopi. That is incorrect. Octopus, plural, is octopuses. The whole thing just sounds weird. Not really sure how you would like rephrase that one, that little nugget, but I would probably try to figure that one out. But the thing is that there's not just one way to do this. If I said cat, which I think most people, They think by just putting an S on a word that makes it plural. Cats, yeah, it works for. But look at how many instances where that is not the case. Okay? Also, I need to let you know, these are just the plural forms of the words. That's not possessive yet. The first step is to make sure that the word is in its plural form. This is just the plural form of the singular word, okay? So please make sure. In fact, I'm going to erase this because I want to make sure. Again, you have these rules written down, so I'm not going to waste time and rewrite the words. Okay, so this is my singular form, and this is my plural form, okay? Now what I need to do is I need to make it possessive. Plural, possessive, which is different, okay? Now, the first rule, if you follow along with your text, is that if in its plural form the word ends in S, then you add the apostrophe after the S, okay? So cats, in its plural form, ends in S, so all I'm doing is I'm going to add an apostrophe, okay? Men, the other rule says, if you do not have an S in its plural form, then it is apostrophe S, okay? So men does not have an S on it, so now I have to give this an apostrophe S. So plural possessive, you're only either adding just the apostrophe after the S or the apostrophe S if in the plural form it does not end in S. Knives. Now look, knives. If I said the knife's blade and I'm talking about one, then I would add an apostrophe S. But I'm not. I'm talking about the steak knives were placed on, or the steak knives handles were all crushed. And remember that if you're using plural, then the whole sentence has to jive and it needs to reflect plural things that are going on. So knives, because it ends in S, will just have an apostrophe. Dresses, same thing. It ends in an S, so I'm going to give it an apostrophe. Syllabize, I have 6 classes. My classes, syllabize, needed to be, or the syllabize, my classes syllabize were passed out to all 6 of my classes. Okay, because I'm talking about multiple, and they're all different, by the way, for the most part. All right, so for here, we go back to this rule up here. It doesn't end in S, and so I have to add an S. Now, there are a lot of irregular nouns, so you really need to make sure that, one, that you put it in its plural form correctly, and then you go to the rules. Moral of the story. If it has to be in its plural form first, then you determine if it needs just an apostrophe or an apostrophe S. Now, English language, gotta love it. Is there an exception to the rule? Yes, there is an exception to the rule. One, it. If I said its apostrophe, this actually makes it a contraction. So with its possessive, there is no apostrophe. That's the exception to the rule. Because with the apostrophe, it actually changes the meaning of it. So that is our one exception to the rule. Everything else, you need to have that apostrophe or apostrophe S. So I hope that was helpful. Again, this information is in your textbook. I have walked you through it. I've given you examples for it. You will be assessed on it. Typically, where most people see it, I could give you examples. Work this out. What really matters is in our editing. When you're going back through and recognizing, Is this something that's showing possession? And if it is, then you do need to fix it. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in class.